There's no sentence that you can use the word goblin sperm in that isn't kind of absurd. Hello, welcome to So We're Watching That Right, a podcast where two lesbians bully each other for having the same taste in anime. I'm Becky, scientifically certified best girl.
And I'm Val, everyone's favorite harem protagonist.
Hey, we have a Patreon now, which Val set up. Thank you very much, babe.
Yeah.
You can find it at patreon.com/slimebugproductions. Bunch of stuff is going to happen there over the coming months. At the moment, there's one tier. It's $5 a month. You get a vote anytime we need help deciding what to watch next or cover for the show. Currently, that vote will have a lot of sway because there's not very many members yet, but please join us.
We're growing, but yes, currently there is a vote that is ending before this episode comes out, so a little slow, but to focus on a light novel out of 6 choices. Since I'm going to be doing monthly posts covering what I read, I figured I would leave some of that up to our supporters.
Yes, that's the first thing that's going up on there is posts of Val's thoughts on everything that she's reading, which is always interesting. There's a whole lot of often added context for stuff we talk about on the show as well, which is really useful.
Mm-hmm. Today I'm not feeling too well, so I can't even really get mad about you calling my writing good. Let's move on.
I kept it as short as I could.
I know, and I still wanted to get
I
still wanted to get a shot in at you. This is our shtick. Speaking of,
let's just get this out of the way, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
I hate the a cappella show. I'm going to destroy everything. How dare it come for me like this twice in one episode? I watched this like 2 hours ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, first off, in the first half of the episode, Irie, the club president, who I'm sure you'll remember by now is a creature, is up on the roof of the school being super melancholy and talking about how she feels like she's at the peak of her life at age 17, running this club of people doing a thing that she loves, and she hates the prospect of getting old. And she doesn't quite say it feels like the end of the world, but the mood is there. And I wrote so many songs and poems and stories about the end of the world when I was 17. And I just... And I think it's a fair thing for 17-year-olds to feel, but also absolutely mortifying. And then, in the main plot of the episode, so the club is reconvening after this big falling out, and they're all trying to figure out how to work together and understand one another and what caused the fight. And as part of this, Uta has learned that her older sister is in the same a cappella group at university that the senpais in her club sometimes go and practice with, and that is trying to recruit Ray, the other senior, not Irie.
Mm-hmm.
So Uta gets her sister to take her backstage with them before a big local show, where we finally get to put some names to these characters. And in particular, the one that I've been referring to in my notes for weeks as Hot Bitch, who, in this episode, is wearing the hairstyle that I'm probably going to get at my next stylist appointment, and a shirt suspiciously similar to the one I was looking at on Saturday, and styling it the same way that I have been toying with the idea of styling, and turning out to be a horrifying tyrant and a monster who can't understand doing stuff just for fun, only for success, who thinks it is not enough to be good, what matters is being loved, who kicks people out of the group for not being good enough, and who more or less laughs it off when the rest of the members of her group say, and I quote, "Mizuki leaves much to be desired as a person."
Oh, that's fucked.
And now she's trying to recruit Uta because she thinks Uta has the potential, and she sees the kind of, like, she is absolutely determined to take her a cappella group to the top of the Japanese music industry. Like, she openly says that what she wants to do is become an a cappella group so successful that a cappella gets its own music chart in parallel with the pop music charts.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
But good. Go off, queen.
This is secretly how I think about literally every creative project I have. I hate it.
I'm aware. Your optimism is much needed in a lot of ways, but also I'm here to be a little bit of a downer to keep you grounded.
And I've been like this forever as well.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, She wants to recruit Uta because she thinks Uta is promising but unpolished, and she sees the kind of media popularity advantage in, we could take this girl and train her up in the public eye, which would be horrifying for Uta herself to go through. Yeah, I'm deeply, deeply mad and upset and angry and attacked.
Speaking about attack, several things were aimed at us with episode 10 of There's No Freaking Way I'll Be Your Lover Unless, or Watanare.
Yes.
Oh, we just watched this.
Like half an hour ago. So, at the end of the last episode, Reneko and Ajisai were heading to a hot spring kind of ryokan together. They are now at the hot spring. Reneko gets very normal about the thought of Ajisai in a yukata.
Especially after she goes no peeking.
Ajisai is definitely, like...
Yeah.
Scheming from the get-go in some ways.
So, here's the funny thing. There is a manga/anime that's called Witchcraft Works. I mostly think about it because of the ending, but also it has the energy of like, this is girls' love or Yuri, that someone decided at the very last minute the main character should be a boy instead. It has that energy. This has the inverse energy where it's just like, we're gonna make this about like one boy who has like a lot of friends who are just kind of weirdly into them, and then at the last second Reneko became a girl instead of a boy. We love to see it. But a lot of the tone in this is just like, I don't think that would be something that would be said like in a lot of shows or a lot of series. It's just like, no peeking would be not said to your girlfriend.
Yeah, I suppose the girls all treat Reneko the way that harem girls treat a boy. But the thing is that in Reneko's sincere moments, she's very different to the classic harem boy archetype. Although she is kind of close to the, like, actually decent harem boy that shows up in a lot of the shows that we tend to prefer.
Yeah, which is why we keep going, estrogen could save him about all of them.
I think we might have to abandon that claim after this show, because estrogen isn't helping Reneko any.
We joke about that. I don't think estrogen would help any of them. It would just make everything Yuri, and I'm not going to complain about that. Let's be real. More girls is good. Anyway.
Ajisai wants to pay for everything because she feels guilty about what she sees as dragging Reneko on this trip. So Reneko challenges her to a ping-pong duel over whether or not they're going to split the bill. But the way she phrases this when she first pitches it to Ajisai is, use your body, because this writer knows exactly what they're doing.
Taryn Mikami is a fucking menace.
No kidding. Anyway, Reneko, like, they have the fucking ping pong game is wild, and Reneko ultimately loses and says she'll do anything for Ajisai to let her pay half.
Okay, we can't just like gloss over the fact that they start having like a heated, like teary-eyed discussion of their friendship in the middle of this ping pong game, and Reneko like straight up goes, "That's why I love you," with a full daisuke, and ping pong game.
The full daisuke is at the climax of like a minute of her just raving about how much she likes Ajisai and yeah, like how much she cares about her and stuff. And yes, they do end up both sobbing. Reneko begs Ajisai to give her another chance to do something that will earn her the right to pay for half. Reneko doesn't like hot baths, apparently, or she says at the start, at the thought of going into a hot bath with Ajisai, that she doesn't like hot baths. Now, I can believe that Reneko might not like hot baths, actually, but also it's played more as if it's Reneko doesn't mind hot baths at all, but the thought of going into a hot bath with Ajisai
specifically hot springs. She's been in She's been in so many baths in this show. She likes baths.
I meant hot spring, the wrong word lodged in my like dialogue cue.
Why did you type baths?
Because I guess the Western expression is more commonly hot baths.
I don't think I've ever heard that over hot spring.
That might be a British thing and a Roman legacy, actually.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. Anyway.
They're in the hot spring. Ajisai starts talking about Reneko's encounter with Satsuki, which leads to Reneko confessing that she's grabbed Satsuki's boobs. which leads to Ajisai offering to overwrite that embarrassing memory, which is how she frames it, by letting Reneko play with her boobs.
And then Reneko is just like, I shouldn't waste Ajisai's kindness. I should grab her tits.
What's the big deal about boobs? I've got some too.
Immediately followed by, oh god, this feels so different.
And then Ajisai making a horny noise.
Yeah, got a little too grippy there. Sorry, also the rest of the, Reneko, you're so dumb. The rest of the conversations in this fucking episode put together are just really funny. Because then they start talking about, the difference between friendship and love. And, they start this conversation in the bath, and then they end up going to bed and, having talk about whether either of them has a crush. Ajisai has a secret crush.
Reneko says she doesn't have a crush, and tiny shoulder demon Mai Otsuka shows up to tell her she's lying.
And then she gets put in the box.
And then she gets out of the box.
But the thing is, in the bath, the thing that started this conversation was, you're more of a girlfriend than a friend, is the thing that Ajisai says to Reneko. Then Ajisai goes, I think the difference between friendship and love is whether they turn you on.
Yeah.
Which, in sequence.
Yep. And then Reneko very firmly dodges the question of which of her friends she's gotten turned on by.
Yup.
Anyway, the next morning, Reneko goes for breakfast, comes back from breakfast. Ajisai still hasn't got out of bed. Ajisai basically drags Reneko into bed with her and dragoons her into playing Big Sister, which, it's a weird moment because it's got all the baggage of, little sister shit in anime, but it's also, under it, it's very understandable that Ajisai, who normally has to be the mom to her younger brothers, wants to be babied a bit. All of that makes sense from that point of view. But framing it within the context of all the stuff around whether Reneko gets horny and the fact that Ajisai lying on top of her and rubbing her chest makes her horny in this scene.
Yeah.
God, it's so much. And then Reneko is not very good at role-playing Big Sister.
Yeah, especially because her little sister is way more competent than her.
Yeah, her little sister is a Big Sister. So she runs out of stuff and she's like, my friend Satsuki gave me a talk deck. I'll look at that. And the next thing in the talk deck is, what was your first time? That almost gets glossed over in the anime.
Yeah.
And I don't know how this can be an anime where something like that gets glossed over. Then there's other shenanigans with Satsuki, and then there's a knock on the door and it's fucking Mai has shown up.
And then, because Reneko had to go get up to check the door, Ajisai is waiting for her when she comes back, and she's like, "Big sis Reneko," and then Mai is standing there.
Crimes.
This show...
Eve, I hope you're happy with yourself.
Eve has been excited for this since last night, and I'm just like, I get it! But holy shit.
Eve has been excited for this for weeks.
That's true, but she got extra excited last night because it was happening.
Yes. And it sure did fucking happen. Speaking of sure did fucking happening.
Yep, sure did. Bad Girl, episode 10.
Bad Girl, episode 10. Okay, so in the first part of this, they form an impromptu study group. You, Suzu, Mizuka, Ruha, and Ki. Not Atari, for once. And they learn Ruha's study strategy, which involves inserting herself into everything that she has to learn.
Yeah.
Including...
Marx?
She rewrites the entire Marxist theory of economics, find replacing the word commodity with the word ru.
Yup.
Anyway, they're in school, the typhoon breaks, there's a power cut and thunder. Ki gets afraid. Yu is going to help her go to the loo, I think.
Yeah. Suzu
gets jealous of how Ki is clinging to Yu and goes with them. And in the process of this, Suzu admits to feeling jealousy over Yu. And Yu does hear, and then doesn't have a chance to follow up because everything in this show moves too fast for everything to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But when Ki outright asks how Yu feels about Suzu, Yu's sister owns her, which is brutal.
Yeah.
It's so mean. This show is so mean to Suzu.
I feel genuinely bad for Suzu.
Yeah. especially because of the final set piece.
Oh, God.
Had you forgotten?
No, I hadn't, but goddamn.
So, one morning, Yu gets up and finds that Atari has come to visit her house, having met her mum
And befriended her.
while she was out walking the dog or something.
Yeah.
And then Yu's mom says, well, we need it downstairs to host like a community meeting. Can you guys go and hang out in Yu's room? And Yu goes, oh shit, I need to clear up all my mess. And the mess is like 10 dakis, 10 identical dakis of Atari.
Yup.
And her ultimate solution of this is to throw them out of her window across to Suzu's window, which faces hers.
Yep.
We get a clearer shot of Suzu's daki of Yu.
Yep.
But Suzu is asleep in bed, and Yu throws all these Atari dakis on top of her. And then I'm cutting some stuff for time because, God, we've got so much to talk about this week. But Suzu wakes up, finds that she is covered in Atari dakis and screams. Atari hears this and goes to the window and looks out and sees Suzu hugging a daki of Atari.
Yep.
End episode.
End episode.
Can't wait for the consequences of that one.
Yeah. Speaking of a character named Yu being a fucking menace,
I mean,
he's a good menace.
he has very few opportunities in this episode to be a menace because the fourth girl has shown up.
Yep. Dealing with Mikadono sisters is a breeze. Episode 10. The fourth girl from the OP has
Literally
appeared.
seconds after you said, we still haven't met the fourth girl.
Yep.
I have summarized the fourth girl thus. She's like if a minefield was a klutz and only cared about shogi.
Yep. This girl's hyper-fixated.
Incredible
It's fine.
look. She is first met walking down the road with her nose in a book, and Yu has to, like, guide her around roadworks and stuff.
I mean, he tries to after she fucking faceplants into a pole.
That's
But
true.
then she gets all pissy about him trying to do that. So,
And he hands her a pickled plum,
yep.
and then she pulls one out of her pocket and goes, oh, he's like me. Anyway, the reason that you meet this girl is that he's on his way to where Miwa is playing shogi because she's forgotten her lunch, and he's bringing it to her, and he gets to watch her
In action.
and he sees the moment that she, like, figures out how to beat her opponent, which the other observer who's standing next to him also notices because she licks her lips in a particular way that has become known as the Mikadono lick.
Yeah.
So she wins the game, and Yu tells her she looks cool, and she doesn't like being called cool because she's kind of going into little sister mode.
Yeah.
But what we find out is that Sakura, the fourth girl, has declared herself to be Miwa's rival, despite never having beaten her. And while Miwa is completely contemptuous of this, Yu understands exactly. And they all end up having lunch together, and rom-com bullshit strikes because, again, Sakura is a klutz and falls over, and Yu is a klutz and falls over on top of her.
Yep. Actually, the first time he falls under her, catching her rice ball, and the second time it happens, then he falls on top of her.
Yes. Yeah, so a few days later, Miwa has a match against Sakura, and it's a big deal. Like, it's a ranking challenge, that it's first of 7, something like that. So Yu gets up early and goes to a particular shrine that honors shogi players. And as he's getting up early, Kazuki and Nico also get up early with the same purpose in mind, so they all go to the shrine together, where they meet Sakura, and rom-com bullshit strikes again when Sakura trips and falls over, and Yu falls over on top of her. Also, on the way to the shrine, Kazuki is wearing glasses, and again, that girl is a weapon, and I hate it.
A weapon aimed directly at you. I'm gonna get with the splash damage, it's fine.
Yeah. Then they go home, and Yu is watching the game on his phone. And the other two girls keep hovering over his shoulders, and he gets fed up with this and drags them onto the couch with him, at which point they fucking flee.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first time, Miwa loses to Sakura, because we've got to have an arc here.
Yeah.
And there's a very funny bit at the end where everybody's trying to be normal about the loss, and Miwa is the only one who's succeeding.
Yep. Speaking of people being so normal.
In My Dress Up Darling, Season 2, Episode 10, we pick up where the last episode left off, which is Marin thinking that in preparation for staying the night at hers to play the horror game that she's cosplaying next, Gojo has bought, like, the sex energy drink, and when he says he's planning to stay up all night, he means he's planning for them to stay up all night banging, when in fact he's planning to stay up all night playing the horror game. And there is this scene of absolutely agonizing tension of them sitting in Marin's apartment while Gojo starts to play the game, and Marin freaks out about are they going to get it on, and how unready she feels. And Gojo's just playing the game, and then Marin, after they've both had like a shower, and Marin's provided Gojo with some of her clothes, and the only thing she has that's big enough for him, because he is quite large, is an Ahegao hoodie.
Yeah.
So
sure, she's a good time.
Through this whole sequence, he's sat there in an Ahegao hoodie.
And he's also really stressed out because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the whole thing is like, well, if I don't sleep, I'm not sleeping over, and thus it's not bad. But also, the only clothes I have are this horny fucking hoodie, and I'm just here to play a video game. It's fine.
Yes. Anyway, Marin kind of conks out one way or another, and he puts her to bed, extremely chastely, because of course. And he goes back to playing the horror game. And the horror game is, like, they mocked up some screenshots from it. It's clearly pretty horrifying. There's, like, cannibalism and stuff. And Marin wakes up the next morning, in bed, realizes nothing happened, is disappointed, admits to herself that she's disappointed that nothing happened. She goes through to the room where Gojo is, and he's been up all night, and he's drunk his energy drinks, and she realizes that he bought normal energy drinks, so she was worked up over nothing. He is so shaken up by the game, and probably also by doing his first all-nighter and drinking 2 cans of Monster, that he throws up. But then, like, Marin decides that she has to confess to him, and she's trying so hard to work up the courage. And I just felt it really, this episode, for all the silliness that's on top of it, this is an episode about an otherwise very confident, outgoing, extroverted girl hitting the teenage panic and terror that comes with really truly being in love with someone with all the intensity that exists in adolescence. And the scene where she bottles on confessing to him hurt so much.
Yeah.
And you think that they're going to leave this season on a cliffhanger of her confessing?
I didn't say a cliffhanger. I think they will get to her confessing in the final episode, and something is probably going to go wrong because this is not the end of the series.
God,
yeah, I know.
Like, inadvertently, you put that thought in my head, and I've just been feeling the horrors. Like, I was in a comic shop on Saturday and looking at the My Dress Up Darling physical copies, going, "Am I just going to crack and buy all of these?" There's like 22 volumes.
Yeah, it's pretty chunky.
Yeah.
Speaking of things with a lot of volumes that are pretty chunky, that went better than this episode in terms of relationship stuff. Watari-kun's, shockingly.
Watari-kun's blank is about to collapse, episode 10. Somehow... So most of this episode is about Makina trying schemes to get Watari to pay more attention to her as a potential romantic interest. And she just bounces off him every time. Even when he sets himself up for failure, because they get given some tickets to a kid's film, and he's going to take his sister and her friend, and he invites Makina to go with them. And she's like, "Oh, we're going on a date to the cinema." And afterwards he says, "No, I was just chaperoning 3 kids to the cinema."
Yeah.
And he falls asleep in the movie as well, which is a nice touch. She gets permission at their workplace to do waitress work, so she puts on the waitress uniform, which is a, like, exoticized kipao. But she does not fill it out as well as Satsuki did when we saw Satsuki in it. So that doesn't work. She takes him to a lingerie shop because she does apparently have this habit of collecting lingerie, which has been kind of foreshadowed. But she tries to get him to choose underwear for her, and that doesn't work. And then afterwards, she's trying to badger him on the "you prefer big-breasted girls" bit, which she segues from into trying to get him to fondle her tits per the oft-repeated rom-com trope that fondling them will make them bigger. And through that, we see Yukari making her way to meet up with him. And you're like, oh no, she's going to arrive at the moment that he caves and gropes this other girl. But no, what happens is she arrives at the moment that Watari's saying, "No, I love Yukari, I'm going to stay committed to her, and I am not going to mess around with you." So Yukari gets to hear him say he loves her. And there's 2 episodes of this show left. That's working out suspiciously well. Something else is going to blow up.
There are 3 episodes left. It's 13 episodes.
Help.
No. Speaking of shows with 3 more episodes, or actually no, 4. Fragrant Flower is also 13.
Yay! This one can be as many episodes as it wants.
Yeah, Fragrant Flower Blooms to Dignity were behind by an episode on Japanese broadcast, but it only just now hit Netflix in English. And yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, so poor Rintaro is struggling after the date because he's realised he's in love with Karako, although he hasn't put words to it yet. And he cannot keep his cool about it. He keeps thinking about her and getting distracted and stuff. But as you have been promising for a while and building up to, this is the episode where they all go to Rintaro's place and like find out that his mum runs a bakery, and Karako and Subaru just happen to show up while all the boys are there. Mm-hmm. So they have a kind of, like, his mom throws them an impromptu party to celebrate. Basically, she is celebrating Rintaro having good friends. And, you know, as with everything in the show, it's very touching. We get the backstory on why Rintaro started dyeing his hair blonde and wearing piercings, which has to do with a time as a kid when he was like not doing well and having a bad time, and his parents tried to treat him by taking him to another bakery, which is like, he lives in a bakery, that's not much of a treat, but they took him to this other patisserie, and it was really, really good. And also the baker there was a foreigner with blonde hair and piercings.
Yep.
So that was the inspiration, and it's revealed that his mom also did the blonde hair and piercings thing to support him in that.
Yep.
Which is extra cute. She's wonderful.
Yeah. It makes me cry every time it comes up. It's really good.
It's really good. Other detail, Karako turns out to be really good at Mario Kart and clowns all the boys.
Yep.
Which is great. And they plan to all go on a beach trip together after the exams. So in order to get Rintaro and Cat Boyfriend through the exams, they're going to do a study group.
Yeah.
This show is, like, for a show that started in a place of such serious grappling with the way kids can be made to hate one another, where this show has already got to is so blessed. Mm-hmm. I'm so lucky. I feel so happy that this show exists in the world.
Yeah, I'm also really excited to read more of the manga because it's still ongoing, but there is a shit ton left. Like, the Fragrant Flower Blooms of Dignity, we're on, like, chapter, 36 or something. And there are currently 159 chapters. Like, oh!
Yay, but also, oh no.
Like, the next one that is getting collated into a volume is volume 9, which is the one where Rintaro's hair isn't dyed blonde.
Oh, ominous.
No, so you can cut this if you want, but the synopsis on that is basically he does it as a show of goodwill to her Chikyo friends.
Ah.
So that they're not as scared of him, which is, God.
Yeah.
What a good boy.
He's such a good boy. Speaking of good boys, actually, we don't get a lot of the good boy in April Showers Bring May Flowers, episode 10. Mm-hmm. He is a very good boy.
Yeah.
I suppose Gotanda counts as a good boy.
Yeah.
This is mostly about a bad girl, though, in that she is a bad girl and also very bad at trying to be anything else.
Yeah.
So a lot of this episode is Iguisadani trying to put on like a good girl act to attract Ueno, but Ueno literally only has eyes for Tabata at this point. Mm-hmm. We get more of Gotanda kind of like pushing Iguisadani to basically be more normal.
Yeah.
Like, just chill out, girl. I really appreciate his presence in this.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be an anime without some horse shit, so the class is going to do gender-swapped Snow White at their school festival. Iguisadani immediately gets voted to be the prince. All the boys are like, should I then put my name forward to be the princess? Because then I'd get to kiss her, but maybe that's not okay. Which inevitably ends up with Ueno being the princess. He also gets recruited to... Well, initially they want him to sing in a band, but he can't sing, so he gets Shinbashi to do the singing. So they say, well, you can play guitar then. And it's like, you are literally recruiting this boy to be an ornament.
Yeah, like, if your band can be replaced that easily, like, what? Who? Why? Why?
Well, it is pretty easy to add an extra rhythm guitarist to any band.
They wanted him to be the vocalist.
Level.
They were planning on...
They did want him to be the vocalist. It is also easy to end up in a situation where you don't have anyone that you feel can be a vocalist.
I just feel like this is a goofy bit to have.
Oh, it's an extremely goofy bit to have, but also it's not more goofy than many other things in this show.
That's fair.
Anyway, subsequently... In another Power Cut at School episode, Tabata and Ueno get caught in a power cut at school. They are sheltering in the classroom. He offers her his sweater, and because she can't tolerate people doing nice things for her, he has to be really forthright about the fact that he wants her to rely on him more, which she gets kind of blushy about. And then when she realizes she's getting blushy about it, she tries to run away, basically, run away from him, trips and falls, and he catches her basically in his lap, and then they get really blushy.
Yep.
Finally.
It has taken 10 episodes. Good grief.
We're getting there. It's fine.
Speaking of getting there, holy fuck.
We're going somewhere with the Summer Hikaru Died episode 9. So there's lots and lots of plot lore, kind of background stuff in this. I really want to focus on the character stuff, because there's this incredible scene where it turns out that Yoshiki has created a grave for Hikaru, because he has recognized that no one is going to mourn Hikaru but him until the not Hikaru creature is out of the picture. Mm-hmm. And he can't kill the not Hikaru creature because he tried that.
He tried that, and he also doesn't think he can bring himself to do it again.
Yes. So Yoshiki goes to pray at this little gravestone that he's made, and the not Hikaru creature finds him there, and the first thing that he asks is, how am I different from Hikaru? To which Yoshiki very pointed, I think this is genius writing, very pointedly says, he was better at reading the room, which is true in general, but also particularly true at that moment.
Yeah.
But then the not Hikaru creature asks him if he liked Hikaru, and he doesn't answer. Very conspicuously, weightedly doesn't answer. And then not Hikaru declares that he and Yoshiki have their own thing, kind of tacitly, implicitly a relationship, which, yes, it is. I forget which of them says to the other, you shouldn't have to be human, and I don't want you to be human. I think Yoshiki tells not Hikaru, you shouldn't have to be human, and not Hikaru tells Yoshiki, I don't want you to be human, which is a wild combo. Truly an incredible exchange to happen between this boy and this monster that love each other. And the scene kind of ends with Yoshiki giving not Hikaru this uncomfortably long head pat kind of embrace. And then they go to, they're trying to figure out what's going on. They've got all their notes, they've got a map of the village and stuff, and they're doing their... It's not quite red string on a corkboard thing, but that's the vibe. They're wondering if not Hikaru is a god. He says, if I'm a god, why do I have all this stress? Which is fair enough, I guess. Mm-hmm. And not Hikaru says, maybe I should go back up the mountain if me not being on the mountain is the problem. And Yoshiki's response, immediately and without faltering, is, right after you found a place to call home? I can't, with these boys, protect them. That's...
Yeah.
But they are closing in on the secrets of Hikaru's family, and the curse which results from something that happened in the distant past, around the time of a famine that's been mentioned a couple of times. And then the PI who's been trying to figure out what's going on finds them and attacks. Also, I wasn't 100% clear on this, but the spirit that attacked them at the end of the previous episode...
Yes, was his.
Kind of...
It was his.
Was a tool of the PI, not just a random spirit.
Yes, specifically, so he had a bell that he slashed his hand open with to get blood on it and threw it down as a ritual to get that spirit to hound whoever had left whatever residue on the little shrine a few episodes ago. And that was what attacked them previously.
Gotcha.
And that's also what took an organ from him in repayment in this episode.
Yeah. Anyway, he finds them and he attacks, and it's a pretty shocking conclusion to the episode, I would say. I don't know how there are 3 more episodes of this.
I mean, yeah. We'll see.
But I'm looking forward to them. Moving on, let's talk... Let me give you the turkey update for the week. Turkey Time to Strike episode 9. Have I talked on the show about this show's OP?
Not at all.
Okay, so this is the cutesy girls club bowling anime. The OP literally has the main character doing a This Is Fine dog in her family home at the dinner table with her parents burning around her. There are various shots of them bowling and of the characters kind of being in various kind of pairings and relationships with one another. Also, inexplicably, a lot of it is the main cast being in a band together and performing the OP. Anyway, this week the episode started up and they'd swapped the main cast out for the sisters from the Sengoku period, doing all the same things, and re-recorded the song with their VAs, which was very jarring, but I can see why they did it now. I'm not baffled anymore by this, but I have been baffled most of the season by how sinister the tone of the OP animation is, because it ends with, like, they're still playing, but it's pissing down with rain and everything's getting ruined. Anyway, content warning for the rest of this summary. I have to talk about a whole bunch of characters having ritual suicide attempts, or like threatening ritual suicide attempts. Because at the end of the last episode, we discovered the samurai family's dark secret. Sumomo has a twin, and twins are ill-omened. And the account this show gives of this tradition is you have to kill the younger twin. And also there's a fortune teller who insisted that the younger twin be killed, and also that the local lord ought to marry one of the older sisters. So that's where the betrothal comes from, and that's where Sumomo's sense of guilt about, you know, how she has to go through the engagement and so on, that's where all that comes from. It turns out that the family refused to kill either of the twins, so they've hidden the other twin, Akebi, ever since. And the modern girls, by finding Akebi, have put this arrangement in jeopardy, even though Akebi was periodically walking around outside just with a mask on. But the two twins, Sumomo and Akebi, both try to take responsibility for this by committing seppuku. Also, Suguri, the samurai, the trans man, tries to commit seppuku for the dishonor of letting the secret out. And what this builds up to is Mai, the main character and the leader of the bowling club, getting them to have a bowling match, getting Sumomo and Akebi to have a bowling match to decide who is going to get to do seppuku.
God.
And what happens, actually, is that as they're bowling, their kind of sense of family mood and togetherness and so on pulls them out of this psychological death spiral and makes them realize that they do want to keep kind of living. And there's a whole bunch of argument about the value of life and what is it okay for you to ask of other people around you, what hardships is it okay for them to shoulder on your behalf. And the closing statement, because Akebi is Rina's double, Rina's closing statement is, look, when people say they're willing to go out of their way to help you, they mean it. And you can trust them in that, and you should let them help you, and you should let them support you. Which is a good lesson, and a lesson many people need to hear, but also it happens in a context where probably putting in effort to help her is going to have to mean that they're going to overthrow the local lord who wants to kill one of the twins and marry the other.
Yeah!
With the power of bowling. Turkey time to strike.
Fuck?
It's...
This bowling enemy puts the strike in workers' strike. Anyway.
Thank you, dear. I also have to talk about Arknights Rise from Ember because that finished this week with episode 10, and this is my favourite bit from the game. Started out with the scene of the Rat King. I always love the Rat King, my liege. Always good to see him on screen. He's been really well animated and voice acted. But this is the showdown between Tallulah, who is the leader of Reunion, which is the violent paramilitary-infected advocacy group. And Mia, who is the leader of Rhodes Island, which is this kind of pharmaceutical NGO that also has a large standing army, because that's how bad this world is. And Chen, who is formerly a senior officer of the Lungmen Police Department, and also Tallulah's sister by adoption. And when Tallulah and Chen were young, their adoptive father died, and Chen went with one of the Lords of Lungmen, and Tallulah went with this guy Kashi, who is the villain of the whole thing. And what the game plays out, what the story of the game plays out, and what they show here, is the way that Kashi manipulated Tallulah into a moment of weakness where she became a vessel for his almost like divine right of king's bloodthirst. Like, he's the spirit of the nation of Ursus. And this is a violent nation, and he believes, or says that he believes, that everything must be war and all this stuff, and that what matters is that all of Ursus is united in him. So he kind of he reduces Tallulah to this moment where she gives in to hatred and uses that to possess her. And that's why a reunion has become so monstrous, is because they're under the control of this evil guy.
Mm-hmm.
And Arknights was burdened for its first 4 years by this problem of being a story that was at risk of both siding the brutal oppression of a minority group and like vilifying direct action in defense of minorities. And this is how they steer the course out of it, by specifically making it the agency of the most oppressive power in the setting, that's the root cause of the problems with the insurgent movement.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so deft and it's so powerful. And Tallulah has this line where, Kashi is talking about how he educated her, and she rejects his education in favour of the education that she had from the people living in the land that he's claiming to represent or own or rule over. And also, she doesn't die at the end. It's not resolved by her death. It's resolved by her agreeing to face justice. And she's talking about all the people that are her victims and the victims of the movement that she's led, and also the allies that she's led to her death. And she says, until I'm allowed to die for their sake, I'll live. Which is this fucking gacha game about the world where every girl is an animal girl with cute cat ears, has a moral sophistication and clarity that I have seldom found in the work of professional ethicists. That's why I will always have a place in my heart for this game.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get a bunch of really cute stuff in the denouement where all the like fan favorite characters come back and have cute lines and like, tease each other. We also... So the anime doesn't linger on this to the extent that the game did. In the game, it left me sobbing inconsolably for like a good 20 minutes. But there's a payoff to a character who died nobly earlier on, and it's so much.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be it for the Arknights anime. Or they might do the whole second arc as well, which is the British arc, so look forward to that if it happens. Let me try to whiz through these brief mentions very quickly. With You in the Rain, episode 10, Fuji gets on a FaceTime call with some people who are commissioning her and puppets the tanuki to take the call for her for a bit, which is just a cute joke. But most of this episode is about her still dealing with writer's block and worrying that she's not really a writer, she doesn't deserve to be a writer, and going on a stress-eating binge with one of her friends. It's too real. It's way too real. In Apocalypse Bringer Mynoghra, episode 10, there's a great moment where Pepe, the young boy who is like the destined leader of one of the other nations, calls Atto an octopus because she fights with tentacles, and she turns into like Atto Taco. It's great.
Yep.
Most of this episode, though, is about the realization that the world they're in, where they've been proceeding as a 4X game, is being invaded by a conventional RPG, by a Dragon Quest.
Mm-hmm.
And so all these monsters keep spawning in at random because there's no warning for random encounters in RPGs. And then Atto goes up to confront one of the enemy like leaders, one of the 4 generals, and calls him a mid-boss and bullies him for like how every time in every playthrough he gets beaten like a chump.
Yep.
And also Atto is really, really powerful against the RPG enemies because in a 4X game, each unit attacks the entire enemy army, not just one at a time. So she's able to shred this army that's incoming.
Yup.
It's so clever about how it uses the conventions from RPGs and sets them against the 4X stuff. In Cultural Exchange with the Game Center Girl, episode 9, there's a brief opening salvo about Tanabata where Lily thinks that Tanabata is you make love wishes, which, like, there may be that tradition for older kids, I'm not sure, but none of her friends have made love wishes, and she's made a wish for Renji to notice her or whatever, and gets really embarrassed about that. Renji finds it, eventually her dad finds it. Half of this episode is about the college girl who has fallen for Renji and is therefore Lily's much more appropriate love rival, decides to get a job at the game center working with Renji, but Lily somehow manages to become her senpai?
Yeah, because she's more accustomed to being around the game center.
Yes, but also because she's basically bullying this poor girl. But it's okay because that gets balanced out by her wanting to learn a new game, and it's a game that's really popular with the elementary schoolers, and one of the elementary schoolers becomes Lily's senpai.
Yup.
And little senpais have lesser senpais upon their backs to bite them, and so on. And then there was what seemed to be a third British woman hitting the anime, which would have been terrible. Mercifully, it turns out she's Australian rather than British, but she shows up speaking English, and they all need Lily to interpret for them. And then Jodie, the Australian woman, catches on that Lily likes Renji and offers to teach her how to be good at romance.
Yeah.
So Lily has now exchanged contact info with this woman, and I am sure that the consequences of this are going to be horrifying, basically.
Speaking of horrifying consequences, what the fuck was up with detectives these days are crazy this week? Like, what was in the fucking water?
Detectives these days are crazy continues to escalate. So they are set a job to catch a pervert who's taking photos at the swimming pool. So it's a swimsuit episode. Mashiro turns up initially in like a full body wetsuit with scuba gear before taking it off for not being, because it's not sexy enough, and then striking a bunch of sexy poses in an effort to lure out the creep. But somehow footage gets taken of this, and it ends up on a documentary about baboon courtship.
On the Discovery Channel, YouTube channel.
Yeah. Then Nagumo gets an invitation to a wedding, and all the others decide that they're going to go, one way or another. It's an outdoor wedding. A typhoon sets in at the start of the wedding. Various things go horrifically wrong. The bride sets everything on fire in the attempt to light the candles on the tables, because they're using a torch for it, because matches would just blow out. They do the bouquet toss, but because it's the middle of a fucking typhoon, the bouquet gets carried off by the wind, and initially lands in a deep fat fryer at a street food stall, and then bounces out again and goes rolling down the street and turns into a katamari.
Yeah. And then we're hit with a really unfortunate line when all the fucking brides go for it. Would you like me to read it out?
I didn't put it in the notes. What line are you thinking about?
It's like an egg still being attacked by goblin sperm even after it's fertilized.
Yes, my mind had protected me from the goblin sperm.
I would hope so. Anyway, that line came out of fucking nowhere.
Yeah.
To be clear.
I like, goblin sperm might be like a technical term, or maybe like I can imagine that what might have happened is that there's a term for sperm that keep attacking the egg after it's been fertilized.
No, I'm pretty sure I heard goblin.
Yeah.
I don't think...
I'll stop trying to make excuses for the goblin sperm. Let's move on.
Please.
Which somehow means the tone swap to now talking about the finale of Erased.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple of preliminaries before we really get into like wrapping up the show. The kids have to get to know Aya, who is the third girl that they know is going to become a victim. So they find her sitting in the park reading and approach her, and she's reading King Lear, of all things, as an elementary schooler. And she recognizes them as the kids who pretend that a certain building that they can see from where they are at that moment is a hideout, and she knows exactly where the hideout is. And she's like being scornful towards them. But then Kazu, who is the large kid, comes up and rants enthusiastically to her about like why hideouts are cool, and invites her to come to the hideout. And she kind of develops a crush on him. Mm-hmm. Low-key, one of the most adorable details in this show. And she does show up to the hideout the next day.
Yeah.
And then, so they've kind of made Aya, and also, what's the friend's name? The lad who was also a target?
Hiromi,
thank you. They're protecting them both, and so they're looking for who the predator might go after next, and they identify Misato, the girl who tried to frame Kaio for stealing money from the lunch collection and has subsequently been ostracized. Mm-hmm. Anyway, then we find out who the killer is, and you and Taro were both kind of surprised by how surprised I was, I think. Mm-hmm. Fair to say?
Yeah.
Because what the show does is it sets up this character, and he seems helpful and friendly, but in a way that you might think is a bit suspicious, and Tara clearly did. And I did at first, and then I fell for the show muddying the water on that. I think it did it really effectively, particularly in episode 9.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel really, really uncomfortable now for how much I was duped into saying that I thought there was a relationship building between the killer and Satoru's mom.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to be fair, that is like how he works.
Yes. And it's how the show is supposed to work.
Mm-hmm.
It's all well and good us being kind of detached critics, but I was in the moment, and the way that it stretches out the reveal is chilling. And the killer gets Satoru in his car and is driving him out of town, and it's going on a long time, and they're clearly driving a long way. And the truth comes out, and the killer traps Satoru in the car and sends it into a lake, into a frozen lake. And then 15 years later, Satoru wakes up from a coma.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not clear, because right before he goes under, Satoru shouts, "I know your future."
Mm-hmm.
And I was not clear whether Satoru somehow escaped or was saved, or whether specifically the killer went back in after him to save him.
He went back in to save him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Satoru was locked in a fucked up seatbelt. He didn't have a knife to cut the belt.
Mm-hmm.
He was shouting out of desperation, and he lost all the air that he had. He got comaed. He didn't get out on his own.
Yeah. So we get to see his friends all grown up. We get to see Kenya, and you just gave me this character's name and I've forgotten it. Hiromi, right. And there's this wonderful moment where Kayo comes to see him in the hospital with her newborn child. And, oh God, the sense of joy and relief and happiness that I felt knowing that Kayo had made it and had made it well enough to have a kid and be married was something else.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes into actually resolving the thing with the killer, where it turns out that the killer sees or believes that he sees like threads of fate attached to
people who basically own, like, the anecdote that he uses is kind of illuminates that he sees it on people who have basically like one lifeline, that if he, influences them correctly, he can sever that lifeline and kill them. Because the story that he uses is like, I forget the specific one, but it's the spider's thread story, where because of the one act of kindness a criminal did, which was saving a single spider, he's offered a spider's thread out of hell, and while climbing it, he tries to shake off all the people climbing up with him, and in the process breaks the spider's thread and dooms himself.
Yes.
So that's kind of the tone of like what...
Yeah, and there is this incredible confrontation between the two of them. They're up on the roof, Satoru's in a wheelchair because he's still like rehabbing, and the killer is there kind of monologuing about this stuff, and Satoru turns it round on him and says, "Look, you need me," because the killer says the urge to kill went away when you were in the coma, and now it's back. And I'm going to get away with it because statute of limitations, and I've framed you for this other murder. And then there's a whole set piece about whether the killer's going to push Satoru off the roof in the wheelchair, or Satoru's going to throw himself off the roof in the wheelchair, because it all turns out to be a setup that Satoru has managed, and his friends have set up an airbag for him to land on. Not to boss baby this. This is not really boss babying it, but I realize I talk about Boogie Pop a lot. The whole killer who sees threads of fate attached to people is so Boogie Pop that I almost feel like it might be a deliberate reference. Boogie Pop is influential enough to have had that kind of lineage. I don't remember a Boogie Pop character who specifically sees threads, but it's such a Boogie Pop thing to do. So before I say anything else, I want to stress, this is an incredible show.
Mm-hmm. If
you're listening to this and you haven't watched it, bear in mind the content warnings. We've talked about like how dark the content is, but you should watch this show. It's really, really good.
Even with some of the minor spoilers we've talked about, it's a really good show.
Mm-hmm.
The killer is spoiled in the opening for like 2 or 3 frames.
Yes.
If you want to pause accurately,
mm-hmm.
It's been there since the start.
That said, I was personally a bit disappointed by the ending. And I know you disagree because we talked about this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So it does this time skip because it kind of has to get back to adult Satoru because of the whole time travel context. We have to get to see that the future is like fixed now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one thing that decision denies us as viewers, which is seeing the kids deal with the situation with Misato. And I really wanted to see that, because the way the kids articulate what they're doing is they have realized that it is the kids who've become isolated or ostracized who are vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And Misato has become ostracized because she attacked someone that they have now brought into their fold. And I think there would have been so much potential in the story of these kids both forgiving Misato and also helping Misato kind of make amends.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that would have been really, really powerful to me. So that's a show-specific thing that I wish the show had had. The other problem I have with it, I really think is not actually... The more I think about it, the more I think this is not really the show's fault at all, which is that, the show finished. I was like, this ending makes me wish that this show hadn't had the time travel stuff at all. I wish it had just been a story about the elementary school kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't make sense, because the show relies on the time travel stuff.
Yeah.
In particular for the running bit where Satoru says grown-up Satoru things, or things that come from grown-up Satoru's confidence as a kid. That is structural to how the show tells its story. But I think where I ended up on it is, I don't think a show dealing with childhood trauma this well could get made without the time travel / flashback conceit.
Mm-hmm.
So much of the popular media that we have that is about childhood trauma is about adults flashing back to it in some way.
I feel like that is ultimately necessary in a lot of ways, because, like, A, it's going to be adults making the thing.
Yes.
And B, it's often adults needing to process that. So, like, yeah, I definitely get why this is, like, a formal issue.
And, Erased is a really good case of adults writing a story about an adult flashing back to childhood to address trauma. The other end of the spectrum from this is the standing joke about indie platformers, about how you are platforming to resolve your feelings, and the feelings let you double jump.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're right that there are lots of reasons that adults want to write this kind of story. And I think that's fair enough. But also, it has started to feel to me like the absence of stories about kids, for kids, dealing with this stuff kind of results in a commodification.
Mm-hmm.
Like, childhood trauma doesn't seem to be able to exist in genre fiction for children.
Yeah.
And that feels a bit like a kind of throwing up of hands and a giving up on trying to make a world where we can tackle childhood trauma as it's happening, where we can actually protect kids. And sorry, go on.
I'm just, like, there is a disconnect with how kids are and how adults who are in these positions to, like, make these stories are going to be able to think about stuff.
Yes.
I think it is a really important point to make on this front.
Mm-hmm.
But also just, like, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
But I also really struggle to see a form where, like, short of, your Sesame Streets, something that's more accessible to kids, that their parents would put on, apropos of nothing because they're still being controlled. Like, the children who probably need this are not going to get access to the stories about this.
Yes.
If it's explicitly about that.
Yeah. And I think, like, really that is the point that I want to make sure that we articulate, is that this is... My discomfort here in this moment with this TV show is a symptom of a much bigger problem, which is... Really, it's about the misdirection of the protective urge, right? In general, our culture and society keep doing things that endanger kids in the name of protecting kids, like online content restriction, online ID requirements, and so on. And this is another example of that. And yeah, it's an unsolvable problem, because it's really hard to combat that attitude unless you're going to somehow launch and popularize an entire new parenting method.
Which, hey, not a terrible idea, but that's a big ask.
It's a big ask, and also the only people who succeed at that are right-wing homeschooler crypto-fascists, because they're the only ones who can get the bankroll for it.
Yeah, and we, unlike several of our friends, don't currently have kids, so it's not exactly our domain right now.
That's true. Anyway, from talking about one set of kid problems... It's a laboured segue. I got to get out of this pit somehow, though.
Yeah.
So we watched episodes 7 to 9 of Ascendance of a Bookworm, in which Mine discovers that she is living in a fantasy world, and it has magic, but the magic might kill her.
Yep.
Mine digs up a fruit from the ground that explodes in her face and then starts growing at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and is a known kind of problem species in this setting that happens to make perfect wood for making paper from.
Yeah.
And that feels like it's foreshadowing something very, very silly up ahead.
I will say, not in anything that I've watched. But there are 35 volumes of this fucking series.
Yeah.
So maybe she starts a Trombe farm at some point.
Yeah. Anyway, she's getting her paper business started. She's already starting to make money at it, and also selling, like, crocheted hair ornaments. For some reason, this world's currency has coinage for every order of magnitude from 10 to 10 million. I cannot imagine how fucked your economy needs to be to have that range of actual minted coinage.
Yeah.
Not promissory notes or anything.
Yeah, usually, like, the fact that there are 3 kinds of bronze or copper,
Yeah.
and 2 kinds of silver and 2 kinds of gold, just like, whoa, okay.
Yeah. It's like, imagine if there was $1 million coin.
And people needed to know what it was.
Yeah.
We can't even get away with a $2 bill. Come on now.
Anyway, we are introduced to another character who is the daughter of the merchant with whom Mine and Lutz are going to apprentice, who is a princess-type girl, really.
Mm-hmm.
And she says her hobby is counting money. She's perfect. She's wonderful in every way. I can't wait to see more of her.
Yeah, she's good.
But she is the one who reveals to Mine what the devouring is, which is, if you have magic, then you have to, like, control your mana or it will kill you.
Yeah, essentially, they'll get into it later. But yeah, she's got too much mana in her, and because mana is a noble trait, she hasn't been trained on how to, like, use it or control it. And, whoops.
Yeah.
Might kill her.
Might kill her if she gets depressed again.
Yep.
Like, Frida specifically says, you have to stay motivated and you have to stay upbeat. If you get miserable, it'll get you.
Yep.
Which is what we saw. Like, it turns out that it wasn't flaring up when she was angry, it was flaring up when she was feeling defeated, basically.
Yep. Which, fucking been there.
Yeah. In Kimi Todoke, episode 19... Sawako goes to a sleepover, which turns into going around to Ryu's house, where the boys are all hanging out, having a consolation party for one of their number who failed to get a date. All of this is setting up space for Chizu to have a heart-to-heart with Ryu, only to be interrupted by Ryu's brother, who we learned last time Chizu has a crush on. Ryu's brother gets home and is revealed to be engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And we're introduced to his fiancée, and then we get to confront Chizu's heartbreak, without her yet having had the heart-to-heart with Ryu. So that's all setting up nicely for shenanigans in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So we finished Chaika last time. We started watching Scrapped Princess, episode 1, which turns out not to star Maya Sakamoto.
At all.
Backstory. When I was first getting into anime, the first show that I really latched onto and liked was Razafon, the mecha show by Bones that is basically what if upbeat Evangelion.
Mm-hmm.
And Maya Sakamoto voices the romantic lead in that. And, you know, I was 18, 19. There was this idea that part of how you properly do being a weeb is to get really fixated on a voice actress. So Sakamoto was the one that I picked. And I was looking for other shows that she'd been in. And I remember it was an enormous faff to find a torrent for Scrapped Princess that was intact and working, because it was a slightly older show. It wasn't current at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So the only torrent I found was really slow and poorly seeded. So I spent a lot of effort and time getting access to this show, thinking that the main character was voiced by Maya Sakamoto. She's not.
Yeah, nope.
There is an authentic connection, though, which is that this is by the Chika author.
Yeah.
And it really shows, because we have already met Chika and Toru and Akari and Gi.
I don't think he is the one fucking guy who keeps tailing them, but...
Not quite, but, like, there is an isomorphism between the structure of these characters.
Yeah.
And other ideas that are in Chika, like longer spell incantations being a problem and stuff.
Yeah.
Are
it's a flavor of fantasy that also gets used in Outbreak Company, also by the same author, although it's not the focus there because that's an isekai.
Mm-hmm. You got to experience the choices that are being made on the music in this show. I really like the music in the show, but the jingle that plays for the mid-episode splashes is incongruous, let's say.
What is tone? Can you eat it?
Also, like, Scrap Princess is, I think, a little goofier than Chika, and that does mean...
It's goofier in the early aughts way.
Yes. And so, I've forgotten the names, because I've only put the Chika characters' names in the notes. Doesn't matter. Pacifica.
Shannon Workwell. Pacifica, yeah.
So Pacifica, who is the Chika character, confesses to the big brother Shannon in the first episode, and he says he knows, because of course he does, because he recognizes puppy love when he sees it, because he's an adult. We watched another episode of The Wise Man's Grandchild, in which Shin assembles his cast of friends and collects a rival in the form of a boy who can only scowl. Has not had, like, an uncreased brow yet, and is just angry and hateful at everything.
Yeah, he has that noble stick up his ass.
Yes.
What a fucking jackass.
We get to see just proportionally how much more powerful Shin is than anybody else in the practical part of the entrance exam for the school they're all attending. So they go to the target range in groups of, like, 5, and Shin watches these other 4 people casting their spells, and they're doing these huge, tuney, like, incantations and like, interpretive dances, and then throwing tiny little spells, and Shin obliterates the entire target despite being asked to not do so. All of which means Shin is top of the class and has to give the commencement address, which he's very stressed about, but it turns out to be fine.
Yeah.
He's not actually that shy. And Kurt, the rival, turns out to be harassing Sicilian, the love interest, and he has declared himself to be engaged to Sicilian, and Shin's other friend, Org, who is like the prince of the entire kingdom, has to pull rank on him to get him to back off. But also, Shin does a bunch of other magic stuff that proves that he might be powerful enough to destabilize the entire region.
Yeah.
He makes extra special clothing enchantments, and also he has a teleport spell, and he has not thought at all about why this might be a problem.
Yup. The running bit is, of course, going to be, oh, I did something unreasonable again, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
And the entire friend group going, yes, you did. And he's going to go, what was unreasonable about it? And they're going to go, fucking all of it, bud.
Good. Finally, quick summary, because I have to mention some stuff from Patlabor the TV, episodes 38 to 40. So, the first episode of this, they find a mysterious tunnel under the base. They've been having a lot of petty robbery at the base. They find this tunnel, which they think the robber escaped into. They go down into the tunnel. First, they encounter a giant swarm of rats. Then they, like, hide in a room, and it's full of feral cats. Then they run away from the cats, and they find themselves being pursued by a giant alligator with a bow on her tail through the sewers, which is a reference to something, Peter Pan, maybe? They find the robber, but he runs off, and they give chase, and then the alligator catches their tail again, and it's chasing them. And there's just an absolute Scooby-Doo chase sequence. Just, you know, the way that comically animated people running can be pure distilled comedy. It does that. It's great. Then there's an episode where 2 of the expert pilots from the unit get hired by a company that is trying to mass produce police mechs to help them, quote unquote, test their units. But it turns out they're basically farming them for AI training data in an effort to de-skill piloting. You know, the show is sometimes absurdly prescient. And then they are sent to a remote beach town to investigate plesiosaur sightings.
Okay, sure.
Which turn out to be a hoax because the town is dying and is trying to drive some tourist traffic. And it works briefly, but then they expose the fraud and it's all over. So We're Watching That Right is a project of Slimebug Productions. Intro and outro music is by me, graphics are by Val. You can find us on Blue Sky at slimebug.psky.social, YouTube at youtube.com/@slimebugproductions, Patreon at patreon.com/slimebugproductions. Download all episodes from Libsyn at slimebug.pro and join our Discord via the link in the description. Thanks for listening, and until next time, may anime neither betray nor disappoint you.